Hey everyone, welcome to my kitchen. I'm Bethany, and today's recipe I'm going to be showing you how to make a creamy and cheesy Brussels sprout gratin. This is a side dish that is perfect for the holidays, and I think that even the pickiest of eaters would enjoy this one. It's that good. So let's get right into it. So the first thing that we want to do is get our Brussels sprouts prepped. So I'm de-stemming them and just cutting them in half. If they're really big, you can cut them into quarters. I know Brussels sprouts typically get a bad rep because people don't really like how they taste or maybe even their texture, but I actually served this dish to someone who does not like Brussels sprouts, my dad, and he had 2 helpings of it. He really likes this dish. So I really think that even the pickiest eater and those who are anti-Brussels sprout would enjoy this one. It's so good because it's mostly cheese and it's very, very flavorful. And we're doing 2 pounds of Brussels sprouts, and I'm just putting them in a regular lasagna dish to bake everything in. Then we're gonna drizzle this with 3 tablespoons of a cooking oil or an olive oil. Then we're gonna season it with a ½ teaspoon of salt. And we'll just toss that with our hands. Make sure everything's coated with the oil and the salt. I keep forgetting the pepper, but we're gonna be doing a ½ teaspoon of black pepper as well. And we'll toss that together. So now we're gonna roast the Brussels sprouts in the oven alone before we bake the cheese. And this is actually nice because if you're prepping this ahead of time, you can just roast your Brussels sprouts maybe a day or 2 in advance and then make your cheese sauce the day of your serving it. So that's kind of nice about it. But we're gonna roast these uncovered in the oven at 425 for 25 minutes. All right, so while the Brussels sprouts are in the oven, we're gonna get our breadcrumbs ready. So we're gonna do 1 cup of homemade breadcrumbs, and I do this in a lot of my recipes. I just feel like homemade breadcrumbs are so much better to use than store-bought, and I make them very simply by toasting up regular sandwich bread, blending it in a blender. It's very easy, and it's just a simple way to elevate a recipe a little bit more. It gives a better texture than store-bought. So we're gonna do 1 cup of breadcrumbs, 4 tablespoons of melted salted butter, then 1/4 cup of freshly grated Parmigiano Reggiano to add a nice salty, cheesy flavor on top. These breadcrumbs add a really nice texture to the whole dish. I did this just in my last recipe with the mac and cheese. Okay, then we're gonna add a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder. And then we'll just mix that together. So now we're gonna set this aside and we're gonna make our cheese sauce for the Brussels sprouts. To make our cheese sauce, we're going to dice up 1 large shallot. And then we have 3 large garlic cloves. We're gonna mince those up just into small pieces. Then we have a regular saucepan over medium heat, and I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of salted butter to that. And once that's melted, we'll add our shallot and our garlic cloves. We're just going to cook these very quickly for about 1 to 2 minutes. The shallots don't really need that much time, but I like using shallots over onion, especially in a dish like this, because they're just gonna have a more concentrated flavor and we don't have to use a lot of them like onion, so the dish isn't full of onion pieces. But we'll stir that around with the garlic and kind of constantly stir it because we don't want it to burn. Shallot is a little bit more delicate than onion. And I have my bell sleeves again today, but I tied them back because these ones are very bell forward. And I wore bell sleeves in my mac and cheese video, and a lot of people thought that was a not so good idea when cooking, but I like the bell sleeves. I'm glad they're coming back into style. but I do have them back today, so. And we don't want any browning with the shallot or the garlic. This is just to soften them and cook them. So then after those are done cooking, we're gonna add 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, and we're gonna make our roux for the sauce. This is gonna help thicken it. And we'll just whisk that flour in. We're gonna cook that with the butter and the shallots just for about 1 to 2 minutes. Again, we wanna cook off that flour taste. Then once our flour is cooked off, we're gonna add half a cup of heavy cream. Typically recipes like this are very heavy cream forward, but I'm not super into creamy dishes, so I'm using a little bit less than what would be typical. But just for a touch of cream, I think a half a cup is just right. Then to lighten things up, we're gonna do 1 1/4 cup chicken stock. I did the same thing with this in my scalloped potatoes. I just really don't like a lot of milk or cream. I think the cheese does enough, but just a touch of milk and a touch of cream in these types of dishes, I think is just enough, and then you use chicken stock to lighten it up. That way it's not so heavy, and you can actually taste the other flavors. It's not just cream forward, if you know what I mean. And we're gonna cook this for 2 to 3 minutes on a medium heat. We want that to thicken up with the flour in there. But in the meantime, we're gonna season it with just a few little touches. So I have a very small amount of rosemary here. I'm typically very generous with herbs, but I felt like in this recipe, it just needed a touch. Just a little kiss of rosemary, because I want it to be more of a background flavor than something that you really notice. So we're gonna do just a half a teaspoon of fresh rosemary. And then we're going to flavor this with just a touch of nutmeg, like we do in typical bechamel sauces. Just helps give it a little depth of flavor. Okay, and we're just gonna cook this, like I said, 2 to 3 minutes until it thickens. Then we're also gonna season this with a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. We'll whisk that together. This hasn't thickened up yet at all. I think my heat went off. So we're gonna wait about 2 minutes until this is slightly thickened. Then we're gonna add the cheese. Okay, so this is thickened perfectly. Now we're gonna add 4 ounces of freshly grated Gruyere cheese. And we'll just stir that in until it's nice and melted. That looks nice and cheesy. All right, so now we're gonna get our Brussels sprouts out of the oven. All right, so these look great, but they shouldn't be fully roasted at this point. They should just be slightly tender. And now we're gonna add our cheese sauce to this whole dish. Just makes it easier to do it that way. Looks delicious. And we'll just coat the Brussels sprouts in that delicious cheese sauce. The nutritional value of the Brussels sprouts has totally gone out the door, but it's still gonna taste delicious. It's just not entirely healthy. Then we're gonna sprinkle over top more cheese. We're gonna do a 1/3 cup of freshly grated Parmigiano Reggiano. At this point, I think I should be fully sponsored by this cheese. That's how much I use it, so. It's so good. Then we're gonna add our breadcrumbs over top. And the butter with the breadcrumbs is just gonna create a nice crunch and golden crust to the breadcrumbs. Okay, so now we're gonna bake this uncovered again for about 18 to 20 minutes at 425 degrees. And we just wanna make sure those Brussels sprouts are cooked. Like I said, they're all different sizes, so some might need a little bit more time, but the cheese should be bubbling at that point and the breadcrumbs should be nice and golden. All right, so the Brussels sprouts are out of the oven and they smell delicious, especially with the cheese sauce. It's not your typical Brussels sprout smell, which I think smells a lot like cabbage when they're just roasting in the oven, but we're gonna try this. It's so good. These are not your average Brussels sprouts. They are so tender and so flavorful from that cheese sauce. And then you have the breadcrumbs on top to add a nice crunchy texture. So much cheese in there. It is so flavorful. This will convert anyone that does not like Brussels sprouts, I promise you. Because like I said, we serve this for dinner with my family and my dad is notorious for complaining about Brussels sprouts whenever they're served at the table. And I know they have a certain type of flavor, especially if you don't really do anything to them. They're not really the greatest vegetable. They can have a bitter flavor. But my dad had 2 helpings of this, and then the rest of my family raved about it. It is so flavorful and so good, and just not a boring vegetable side dish. It just has flavor and lots of cheese. So I definitely think that this is worthy to grace any holiday table. And I'm not a huge green bean casserole fan. I didn't really grow up with it. I know that might be controversial, but I think that this could easily replace green bean casserole. It's that good. So hopefully you guys enjoyed if you try it, and I hope that it makes your holiday menu. It's seriously so, so good. And I definitely have a lot of other Thanksgiving recipes. I know here in the States we celebrate Thanksgiving, but there's also a great Christmas recipe or New Year's. And I also have plenty of other recipes on my website for the holidays, like my cheesy scalloped potatoes that I did a video of that last year. I also have stuffing. And we also have a few more recipes coming out for the holidays, so hopefully you guys enjoy those too. But that's everything for today. So I hope you guys try this, and if you do, you can leave a comment here on YouTube, or actually even better, you can leave a review on my website. The reviews actually really help my website, so if you've tried any recipes of mine and you'd like to leave a review and support the channel, support the website, that's a great way to do it, is just leave me a review on the website. But any way that you guys let me know that you tried a recipe, I'm grateful for that. So thank you so much for joining me today. Hope you guys enjoy this. And as always, I'll catch you in the next recipe and I'll see you in the comments.